Hey, I came back and I'm going to read key facts about black eligible voters in 2024. And this is a Pew Research article that dropped out January 10th, 2024. And so I want to first of all introduce that I have no rights to the music. And Alexa, who's singing this song?
This is Marvin Gaye.
Alexa, what song is this?
This is I Want You, John Morales M plus M main mix by Marvin Gaye.
Okay, so we have clarified the copyright for this particular song is Marvin Gaye. And so the key facts about the black eligible vote in 2024 is crucial. It is very important that we get up and get out to vote because the enemy is against us. We have seen them trying to strategically remove the laws that were put in place to protect African Americans. And colloquially, I don't use the term black. And after I read this, I'm going to go through some of the population in the United States. And by going through the population, we can't use black and white identity. I have to break the population down by ancestry. Okay? I can't go say black American because then you're going to get this skewed number and a percentage. And go say white number American, you're going to get this obscure number of percentage rates. So we're going to go with African American and European American at that point. But I will read this verbatim using that term black, white as we go through the document if it presents itself. It says that the number of black eligible voters in the United States is projected to reach 34.4 million in November 2024. After several years of modest growth, and black eligible voters stand out for turnout rates that are higher than among Latino and Asian eligible voters. And then we drop down into the graphic literatures where it says eligible black voters population in the U.S. is projected to reach 34.4 million in 2024, up 7% from 2020. The U.S. eligible voter EV population changed by race and ethnicity from 2020 to 2024. For Hispanics in 2024, the eligible voter population was 36,200,000 million. 36,200 million. The eligible voter change from 2020 to 2024 was 3,900,000. A change in eligible voter population from 2020 to 24 was 12%. Black eligible voters population 2024 was 34,450,000. The eligible voter change from 2020 to 24 was 2,300,000, 7%. increase. The Asian eligible voter population for 2024 was 15 million altogether. An eligible voter change population was 200 million, 2 million. It was a 15% increase. Total, the total estimate for the eligible voter population is 24,050,000. The eligible voter change from 2020 to 2024 was 7,750,000, altogether a 3% increase. Black voters could play an important role in determining the outcome of key 2024 elections, including for U.S. President. In Georgia, a closely watched swing state, Black Americans account for a third of eligible voters. Ahead of the 2024 presidential election, here are 5 key facts about Black eligible voters in the U.S. based on our own projections for 2024, as well as Census Bureau data from earlier years. Eligible voters in this analysis are defined as citizens ages 18 and older residing in the 50 states and the District of Columbia. Not all eligible voters are actually registered to vote. Detailed demographic information about Black eligible voters is available in the drop down box at the bottom of this post. Number 1, Black eligible voters are projected to account for 14% of eligible voters in the U.S. in November. According to Pew's Research Center projection, the percentage of eligible voters who are Black has risen slowly in the past 2 decades. In 2012, for example, Black voters represented 13.2% of all eligible voters. In the last U.S. presidential election in 2020, they represented 13.5% of all eligible voters. Black Americans are projected to comprise of 14% of the U.S. eligible voters in 2024, similar to past years. U.S. eligible voters whom are Black in millions are 34.4% as we reach into year 2024. I'm going with the top line. I'm going with that last bar. Eligible voters who are Black, the percentage in millions, the percentage of U.S. eligible voters who are Black are 14%. At the same time, the number of Black eligible voters has grown steadily between 2020 and 2024. That number has grown by an estimated 7.1%, a slower rate than amongst Asian eligible voters, 15.3%, but not by what that Asian population looked like itself. It was 15 million. So where it looks like it's a larger growth, it is going by that smaller population, as they do with the African Americans when they project us as versus black and white Americans. It still is that 14% for us, but for white Americans, it is dissected. And I'm going to show you that. The Hispanic eligible voters, their population rose by 12.1%. Number two, as of 2022, about half of black eligible voters live in one of 8 states. Texas has the largest number with 2.9 million, followed by Georgia and Florida, 2.6 million each. Rounding out the top 8 are New York, 2.4 million, California, 2.0 million, North Carolina, 1.8 million, and Maryland and Illinois, 1.4 million each. Together, these states account for 52% of black eligible voters in the 50 states in the District of Columbia. Texas had the most eligible voters in 2022, but DC has the highest share. Texas has 2.9 million these eligible black voters in millions, and the percentage of eligible voters in DC is 45%. Georgia has 2.6 million eligible black voters, but Mississippi has 37% of the eligible voters. Florida has 2 million black eligible voters, but Georgia has 33% of eligible voters who are black. New York has 2.4 million eligible black voters, but Maryland has 33% of eligible black voters who are black. California has 2 million eligible black voters, but Louisiana has 32% of eligible voters who are black. Black voters, number 3. Black voters made up nearly half, 45% of all eligible voters in the District of Columbia in 2022, a higher share than in any state. Other places with large shares of black eligible voters are Mississippi, 37%, Georgia, 33%, Maryland, 33%, and Louisiana, 32%. The District of Columbia and southern states have the highest share of eligible voters who are black. So it shows you the graph here. The light blue has 0.5, like Washington, North Dakota, Oregon, Wyoming, Iowa, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico. California has 6.6 to 10%. Also Kansas, Arizona, Oklahoma, uh, can, Indiana, Wyoming, Minnesota. Then we move to 11.15%, Nevada, Texas, Montana, Illinois, I think Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Then we move to 16.20%. That is New York, Tennessee, Arkansas. Then we move to above 20%, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Delaware, and DC, and Maryland. So, regionally, more than half of black eligible voters live in southern states. The Midwest, excuse me, originally more than half of eligible voters, 57%, live in southern states. The Midwest, 17%. The Northeast, 16%, has the next highest share of the nation's black eligible voters, while relatively few live in the West, 10%. Number 4, about 7 in 10 black people in the U.S. are eligible to vote, a higher share than amongst Hispanics and Asian Americans. Black Americans are more likely to be eligible to vote than some other groups because a high share of age is 18 and older, 73%, and an even larger share are citizens, 96%. A large majority of black Americans are eligible to vote, but the percentage varies widely by state. In Alabama, 74% of the black population to vote by state, with the highest and lowest shares in 2022. Alabama, D.C. was 74%, South Carolina 74%, North Carolina 73%, Mississippi 73%, all of the U.S. 69%, Rhode Island 59%, NE, I don't know which one that is right now. New England, no, that's not New England, that's not Minnesota, 55%, Utah 55%, Iowa is 53%. Nevertheless, the share of black population that is eligible to vote varied considerably by states. While 70% of all black residents of Alabama, D.C., and South Carolina are eligible to vote, few than 6 to 10 are eligible in Minnesota, 55%, Utah 55%, and Iowa 53%. And when I say fewer than 6 to 10 are eligible, and that means percent of vote eligible black voters 18 and older. And Utah, I'm going to go to that last line. Minnesota, 55%. Utah, 55%. And Iowa, 53%. Number 5. Black eligible voters differ from the overall population of eligible voters by age, education, and other factors. Around 1 in 4 black eligible voters, 23%, have a bachelor's degree, lower than the share amongst all U.S. adults eligible to vote, 33%. Another 34% of black eligible voters has some college education or an associate's degree. The remaining 43% have a high school diploma or less, compared with 36% of all eligible voters. Demographics of black voters versus all eligible voters in 2022. The, the gender of men of the black eligible voter was 47%, and that is of all U.S. adults eligible voters, it was 49%. The, the gender of black eligible voters compared to all other U.S. adult eligible voters were 51%. Between the ages of 18 to 29 for all black eligible voters, it is 25%, unless otherwise specified. Amongst compared to all others eligible U.S. adult voters, it was 20%. 32, the ages 30 to 49, all black eligible voters represent 35%, compared to all other eligible voters, 32%. 50 to 64, 23% of all black eligible voters represent 23%, and compared to all other black eligible U.S. adult voters, eligible voters was 24%. 65 plus were black eligible voters were 17%, and that compared to all U.S. adult eligible voters, 23%. Nativity. U.S. born citizens were 91%, and black eligible voters, and in the U.S. compared to other adult eligible voters was 90%. Naturalized U.S. citizens, 9% of black eligible voters, and U.S. adults versus U.S. adult eligible voters is 10%. Educational attained less than high school was for black educational voters were 11%, and 9% for U.S. for all other U.S. eligible voters. High school diplomas were 32%, compared to U.S. adults eligible voters for all others were 27%. 2 years degree or some college, black eligible voters were 34%, and that all other U.S. Adult eligible voters was 30%. Bachelor's degrees that black eligible voters were 14%, and versus all other eligible voters in the U.S. adult eligible voters were 21%. Masters or other postgraduate degrees, black eligible voters 9%, and all other U.S. adult eligible voters were 13%. Black eligible voters are more likely than eligible voters to be women, 53% versus 51%. They also tend to be younger than eligible voters overall. 60% of black eligible voters are under the age of 50, compared with 52% of all other U.S. eligible voters. Detailed data on black eligible voters by state in 2022. I'm not going to click into that, but it has it right here. So anyway, that is that. So I want to go and look at the population. I cannot break down the population by color. I'm going to break down the population by, I'm going to break it down by ethnicities. Okay, and so I'm going to use Wikipedia. Let me see if I got in the right stream here. So we're going to go first with African Americans and prove that that's a 14%, because out on the outside here, it's giving you a demographic stating that it's 12.6%, and there are 12.4%. So we're going to go to the current population for African Americans, and that is the proportion of black Americans in each county that's above with the U.S. Census, the 2020 U.S. Census. The total amount of African Americans are 46,936,733, and that was in 2020. The population total is 14.2 of the total U.S. population, and that is in one race. And then we have another 2% added to that particular number, and that is 12 point. That we've projected from, that was previous. That was 12.4% of the U.S. total population. But this is one race. The one at 14.2, the one at 12.4 is before people were be able to mark their own racial category, and they could write in their racial category. So we have predominantly in the southeastern United States and urban areas. So I'm just looking at the population. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go with, I know that the largest group of European Americans, as I stated, I won't be using black and white no more in my dictum to get to the point here. So I'm going to put in European Americans. No, I can't put in European American. Excuse me. I'm going to put in German American. That's so I'm using Wikipedia and we're going to look at the population. The German total population in the United States alone or in combination is 13.6%. The German population alone is 4.7%. So we've got like 9% people that are called white. The horn word, one of the horn words is calling themselves white. They're actually, German alone is 4.7%, and it was 13.6%. That is alone or in combination. And that is not couldn't be alone and in combination. That is in combination with those who self-claim to be Germans. Okay, so I'm going to speed past that one. Go back. Germans are the next largest population. So I'm going to look at Scottish American. And the Scottish Americans, I believe they are going to fall third in that sector of that European American group that is being the horn word white. Their real representation for the population alone for Scottish Americans in that green, it is 3.6%. And that is Scottish alone or in combination. It says 0.7% Scottish alone. Then it says 0.3% in a red, that I'm thinking that is a decrease in the number of that particular total population. That goes to show the decline. So now we're going to go Italian Americans, and that is Wikipedia. Italian Americans total population is 5.3% alone and are in combination, and alone itself it is 1.8%, meaning that other number on the top where it shows that green arrow, you notice there's no red arrow or anything at the bottom in this particular graph right here, total population. So that other 3.3% are self-claimed Italians. Okay, they self-claim to be Italian, meaning that there's some miscule there really on whether they are Italian or not. But they are considered as that horn word, white people. These numbers I'm reading off to you and these percentage rates, when we look at the white demographic, they've added all of this up together. They're not calling themselves Italians, Germans, and Irish. Let's look at the Irish Americans. Irish Americans total population is 10.9% alone are in combination. Irish population alone is 3.3%, meaning that 7.3% that in combination are self-claimed Irish. So we look at the Latino population, and so the closest country to United States would be Mexico. So we're going to look at the Mexican American population. Well, they're always looking at the southern border. Let's just look at how their population fits here, opposed to when we break down El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, and all of them, because you have to break them down by their countries too. The Mexican American population by U.S. birth 2021 and by ancestry in 2022, there is 11.2% of the total U.S. population for Mexico. So therefore, where is the problem with? Let's do another, um, I'm going to go with El Salvadorian, something like that. Americans. I don't know why this messes up. Sorry. There it is. Got the right spelling. So let's look at their percentage rate. See, this one they're talking about a Latin population. Of the total population for the El Salvadorian American group is 0.75% of the U.S. population, but they get counted in as the Latin America. So let me point out something to you, that we've always known that we lived in Latin America. So at what point do you get to say who can come over that invisible line you're calling a border and who can't? So I have to, you know, because of my position as being an African American, I know how my population came to be in this country. It has a history. If you notice, they don't start seeing those ignorant ones says get out, but we're so far in the fabric of being an American that when a lot of these Europeans are thinking that way, and their lower populations, that if we were to get rid of people, that we're going to get rid of them the order that they came into America, in the order that they came in America. You would have to leave long before they could tear this country apart. Because those of you that are doing that, you're really not from this country. You came in as migrants, and this, as you're trying to say that these other migrants came in and that they're one population, they are not. They are different groups of people, just like the Europeans are. The largest group I just showed you is African Americans. If you can get a larger group than that, I think the Irish said 10, and the Scottish, or did I do the Scottish? If it was 8 or something like that, where I'm surprised, I think Irish used to be smaller. Okay, so let's go and look at see what adds up to the declining population. This is called the Population of Europe Worldometer 2024. And this is actually the first time I'm popping in here. And actually, I'm going to go to the Worldometer. I think that's it right there. Is that going to be the same thing? Oh no, I don't want to open maps. Okay, we have the Europe population. This is the Worldometer. It's a live ometer. So at the current time, we could see that the current population in Europe is 741,659,247. Well, this goes back all the way to the 1950s. So let's see, can I get it to go back there? Let's see how far I can get it back here by touching it. Got to 1951. The Europe population was in this, let me see, the 600 million. So we move up this graph, and as we could see that by the years that they have a growth in their population. So we're going to go look at a different graph. We're going to look at the yearly population growth. That is the total population. And that went up to 2024. We're in 24. I think it's going to only go up to 23. Yes, it ends in 23. That current population in Europe at this current time was 742,272,652. As we could see, it has grown. But now we're going to look at that number change as I go down to this graph down here. And we're going to look at the first of all, the yearly growth rate. That is the fertility birth rate. The European fertility birth rates go to 1, to 0.5, and to 0.0. In order to grow a healthy population, every woman must have 2 or 2.1 or more children to replace herself and her mate. And that is how you stabilize the population. So we're looking at Europe. Europe is at a 1. And that was, let me see how close I can get that to. I got to 51. And that the yearly growth for the population for Europe at that time was 0.88%. Now remember, you have to have a 2 or a 2.1. You see, the 0 should be a 2, at least a 2. It's a 0. Well, 1960, they peaked up. The yearly growth rate is 0.99%. They just need one more little digit up to get to a 1%. And they did in 1961. But ever since 1961, you see a decline in the European population. When we speak about Europe in reference to the United States, we're going to look at that the Europeans are what they are also known as white people. But they're not calling them white people here. So we're going to call them European Americans. Okay? And I've already broke down some of the groups of European Americans. And that was just the larger ones. But I've also showed you that they take those groups and they combine them all together, and that's where you get white people. The white majority is a fake social construct. I'm proving it to you right now because outside of Europe, they aren't called white. But let's look at how Europe impacts their fertility growth rate. The same thing that's going over in Europe with the low fertility birth rates, it's happening to all Europeans worldwide. Worldwide. It's because when you leave your homeland, your motherland, and you go to somewhere else and you deny your motherland and you say that you are a different culture apart from your motherland, you are killing your motherland. And although they call it extinction, it is. They want to call it replacement, or they want to call it white genocide. None of those fit the steering wheel that's happening here right now. What's happening is the fertility birth rate. What's proven this? Let's just look at it. Why'd they ban abortion? They wanted abortion, remember? Woman's right. Hey, woman power. Yeah, they want the abortion rights. Okay? But first, that was only because abortions were targeted at women that were non-white. They were encouraging those women for this very same reason I'm talking about, because that was in the 50s that they could track that their populations are 1% and below 1%. So a population must be 2 or 2.1. They could track that, and they targeted African Americans and Latino women with abortion rights. Before those rights were even given, they were being forced upon some African American women, calling them feeble minded. So abortions had been around. First, they were forced, and now they're forcefully taking them back, because you cannot give the African American woman and the Chinese American woman and the Mexican American woman or the El Salvadorian American woman a right to have an abortion, and European women not saying they don't have that right. In other words, you can't give one group of women a right to wear a mini skirt and then another group of women the right that they can't wear it. So it's a woman's right to wear a mini skirt, or if she doesn't want to wear a mini skirt, if she wants to wear a scarf or whatever, we have the woman's right that has been destroyed for this very reason. I'm getting ready to show you that it's a world factor. It is called natural selection when you start talking about it scientifically. So we see that the European population growth, all not just here in the United States, but worldwide, is at a 1 or below 1%. We're going to skip through that. In 1962 it fell. And I'm going to go closer down here. Let's get here. 1968, it was 0.7%. Then we got a slope right there. 1971, you got 0.6%. And what's right there? At 1976 is 0.53%. They are actually at that 0.5 line. They're reaching, it's continuing to decline. So let's go below that line a little higher. And 1984, it was 0.4%. Looked like there was a little climb right there. Let's go there. And 1986, it grew some to 0.4%. And did I reach that peak of that top over there? Let's see. 86 was that 0.41%. But look, it's continuing to drop. It's dropped. They are at, in 1994, 0.09%. See if I can go a little. In 1997, it has dropped to 0.02%. But I could prove that's not even accurate because older maps show that it had dropped even further. Unless there's been a give or take or in the percentage. So I'm accepted because one thing that they can't hide, and we have these maps, is that in 2000, the population dropped to minus 0.02%. And I could show you other maps that I've taken these same type of videos to show you that it was more grotesque, but now they're in the hiding it. So they're trying to say they dropped to a fertility growth rate at below 0.0% at that particular time. Well, we're going to move on because look, it looks like they did a correction. I could see it clear as day. 2023, they had an increase at 0. After coming out of the minus 0.5%, excuse me, in 1999, minus 0.00% means what? What does 00 mean? So what does sub 0.005 mean? Well, there was an increase, as we could note, that in 2023, it went back above that 00 line to 0.7%. It went a little higher in 2006. It went to 0.12%. Now remember, I'm talking about the species European. We're not talking about white people because Europe is a continent and it has several countries sitting there. So we're going to count them by their countries and their representation as being minority versus majority, connecting why white identity is solely connected to white supremacy, because you can't have white supremacy unless you have white people. You can't have white people unless you have Europeans self-claim to be white, which creates a gang, which is the KKK. Not all, and a lot of them don't even understand the connections to the KKK, white supremacy, and disowning one's ancestry and ethnicity in order to be white, and how it connects to white extinction. So they declined in 2008. Their population was 0.25, not 2.5, 0.25. They've never gotten back up to the 1. In 2013, it was 0.15. And in 2017, it was 0.15. And in 2019, it was 0.11. Let me get to that line because because this is at the end of at 2023 where these margins have changed. In 2020, we have the European population sitting at 0% on the zero line. Now, here in the United States, since 2008, they started pronouncing in the United States that there was a white genocide after President Obama was elected president. All of this white genocide and this replacement stuff, and that they'll tell. I'm looking at Twitter now where they're saying, "Oh, Obama caused all of this division." What caused the division was white supremacists couldn't take the fact that America elected an African American president. If that was the problem, he could get nothing done because they wouldn't let him get anything done. They thought he did get something done. Okay, by the time that Obama had done his not first term, second term, by the time they was just out of breath of trying to tear the Obama care program down, that the only candidate, they had no candidates. They had to bring a new face because they had zero steam. So they brought the most ignorant guy that's done all this stuff, well known, celebrity type. Everybody knows he's a piece of crap. And they all knew that. In order to offset what is happening not only in Europe, but the United States, South Africa, any other place that Europeans think they have dominated, watch how the population drops. And 2020, they're at 0%. At 2020, they won't let me get into that middle right there. Come on now, let's go down a little down here. I don't want to go all the way down. In 2021, they are minus. They have fallen into extinction as of 2001. Minus 0.14%. Let's get at the bottom of that one right there. Minus 0.22%. Remember that the population has to be 2.1%. And this is where you got to realize and know that white supremacy has died, you guys. They don't have the breath, the steam to be white. They have to go back and claim those ancestries I was showing you. And now we got DNA, we got science. This is the dissecting whiteness and the infection that it has caused, because it causes nothing but hatred when you say you got black and white people, but then nobody's red, yellow, or green or brown, just those two groups. Because see, what you don't know about old America is that this was a slave colony, remember? They didn't have Europeans that left over in this country. Europeans didn't come into this country until after the 14th Amendment, and that was to offset this predominantly African, former slaved and forced enslaved into enslavement people, that there was more of them than it was of them. That is the reason why they took the label white, so that they can conglomerate all of those 52 to 48 dominant European countries into one against America. That was the majority, that they were going to be the majority, and it failed. Look, they're in extinction. You see why they running around acting like all crazy and shit? You see why they tried to take over the state capitol? Look at this shit. They have gone into extinction. That was in 2023. 2023, it went up a little bit. They are minus 0.17%. They're not having no babies, you guys. What does 00 mean? What does it mean? Anyway.
I'm sorry, I'll try harder.
Anyway, I'm gonna let the video go. I do want to show you that there are different areas or sub-regions.
I'm sorry, I'll try harder.
Anyway, I'll continue the video.